Hi everybody, it's Cameron here, and today we're going to be looking at energy changes. So we're going to be covering exo and endothermic reactions, as well as batteries and fuel cells. Okay, so let's start with exothermic and endothermic reactions. So when it comes to a chemical reaction, okay, bonds are either going to be broken or they're going to be created. If they are broken or created, that means that energy transfer is happening. Okay, energy is either going to be given off in the reaction or it's going to be taken in. Now, when it comes to an exothermic reaction, this reaction is going to produce heat. Bonds are usually going to be made. Okay, there's going to be a small activation energy and then a large dump of energy into the environment. Okay, I like to always think of a match. A match is a perfect example of this. It requires only enough energy to light it. Okay, just the friction on that match board for it to then become a flame and dump all of its chemical energy into the atmosphere. Okay, so it's important to know that the reactants of an exothermic reaction are going to have less energy than the products. Okay, and that's why we can see this shape forming. Okay, so small activation energy and then a dump of all that energy into the environment. Okay, so the difference between the reactant's energy and the product energy is what we're going to call the energy that is released. Okay, and yes, if we had to decrease the environmental temperature, okay, it would favor the exothermic reaction. And this makes sense because that exothermic reaction wants to give off energy. Okay, if it is giving off energy, it wants the environment to be able to take it away. So cooling the reaction is going to favor the exothermic reaction. Okay. Okay, so the opposite is going to be our endothermic reaction. Now, endothermic reactions are going to require heat energy. They're going to be absorbing it. They're going to be taking it in from the environment. So it makes sense that if the environment is heated up, it's going to favor the endothermic reaction. Okay? When we're looking at the endothermic reaction energy graph, okay, we can see that the reactants are going to require a very large amount of activation energy, and then the products are going to be holding in that activation energy. So the reactants the product is going to have more energy than the reactants did. Okay, this is usually going to be when bonds are being broken. Okay, they require a lot of energy to break, and therefore it's going to be taking energy in from the environment. So bond energy calculation. So the energy needed to break bonds between two atoms is called the bond energy. Okay, so we measure it in kilojoules per mole, and it's not something that I think they expect you to know. It's just good to know that certain bonds are going to have more, or going to require more energy to break than others. Okay, so a simple carbon to carbon bond, single bond, is going to only require 347 kilojoules per mole. Okay, whereas a triple bond between nitrogen is going to take 945 kilojoules per mole. Okay. Okay, so let's look at chemical cells and batteries. Okay, so we know that these cells or batteries are going to be providing a current. Okay, they are going to be moving electrons around. Okay, so how do we do that chemically, or how do batteries work? Okay, so batteries are going to be relying on two metals, one of which is going to be more reactive than the other. You're also going to require something called an electrolyte. Okay, electrolytes are usually in the form of salts in a solution, and what they're going to do is provide this flow of charged particles. Okay, so let's have a look at this example here. So in this example, we have zinc and copper. Okay, so our electrodes are going to be zinc electrodes and a copper electrode. Now, the salt solution is going to be copper sulfate. Okay, and what's going going to happen here is, because zinc is going to be more reactive than copper, the zinc is going to more readily donate or give up its electrons. Okay, so these electrons are going to be given up. They are going to go through the negative anode. It's negative because it has those electrons in it. Okay, it's going to go through the negative anode. It's going to go around to the copper cathode. Okay, and what's going to happen is that copper cathode is then going to attract the copper ions from the copper sulfate, okay, and donate basically its 2 electrons to that copper ion, okay, thus making it neutral, okay, and that copper is then going to build up around that copper electrode, okay. Now the sulfate that was released when the copper detached from it is then going to go through what we call a porous membrane, or it can also be a salt bridge, okay, and it's going to then bind with the zinc ion that was created in the beginning, you see, and it is that constant giving up of electrons and accepting of electrons, and then the movement of the electrolyte that is going to create a charge. It's going to create a movement of electrons. Okay, and this is how batteries and chemical cells work. So as soon as this, let's say your resistor, whatever's using it, is going to be between the two. As soon as the circuit is connected, okay, we are going to have a flow of electrons moving through our resistor, and therefore light will be made, or a sound, or whatever you're using that battery for will be charged. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the hydrogen fuel cell. Okay, it looks a bit complicated, but it's really quite simple. Okay, so hydrogen is going to want to donate its electrons. So we're going to pump it to our negative electrode. Okay, those electrons are then going to go up. It's going to go to our resistor, or whatever wants to use that current flow. Okay, it's then going to come back down and meet up with oxygen that is being pumped into the other side to the positive electrode. Okay, that oxygen is then going to be split into an ion. Okay, same thing with the hydrogen. Once it's donated its electron, and then those ions, the hydrogen and the oxygen ions, are going to come together to form H2O. Okay, so hydrogen fuel cells are very environmentally friendly. Okay, all you need is hydrogen gas from one end, oxygen from the other, and it produces water as a waste product, which is pretty great, a lot better than our combustion engines. The only issue is hydrogen is extremely flammable, and so is oxygen. So this kind of becomes dangerous if you had to put it in a car or something like that. Okay. And yeah, so my name's Cameron, and this has been Energy Reactions, I believe. I'll see you in the next video.